Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome to the physioBRAIN channel. This is Professor Adriano, and today we're going to talk about modifiable risk factors in dementia. So stay with me and don't miss these tips. You already know, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, like the video and share it with anyone you think needs to know this information. So everyone, today we're going to talk about a very important topic related to dementia, the onset of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, and other types, okay? And what we're going to discuss today is based on a consensus, based on scientific studies that have identified at least 9 risk factors associated with the onset of dementia, all right? So we're going to list these 9 modifiable risk factors associated with the onset of dementia. And why are they considered modifiable? Because these are risk factors that, with the right adjustments, changes in behavior, and changes in habits, can be altered and even eliminated through these adaptations. All right? So let's get started. Let's not waste any time. And let's talk about the 9 risk factors. The first one, low educational level. This is a very important risk factor related to the onset of dementia. So people with lower levels of education, formal education, that is schooling, low educational attainment, a higher probability of developing Alzheimer's disease and other dementias later on, all right? The second associated risk factor, high blood pressure. There are several studies that show that people with high blood pressure over the course of their lives for a long time who do not manage it properly have a higher probability of developing dementia in the future, in old age, later in life when they become elderly. All right. The third, which is very important, not widely known, hearing problems. People who have hearing deficits, who need to use hearing aids but don't, people who experience hearing loss over the course of their lives and reach their 60s or 70s with poor hearing, these people have a high probability of developing dementia in the future when they become elderly, all right? So hearing problems need to be taken very seriously. Another risk factor, and not just for dementia, it's a risk factor for the vast majority of diseases we know, is smoking. Cigarette consumption is strongly associated with the onset of dementia later on. It's an important risk factor that should also be avoided. So smoking, cigarette consumption should be avoided to prevent dementia. The next risk factor, which is also associated with various chronic diseases, non-communicable chronic diseases, is obesity, being overweight. So people who are overweight or obese for a long time, who have lifestyle habits that lead to obesity, tend to have a higher probability of developing dementia in the future. So be careful with obesity as well. Another risk factor, which in itself is already a pathology, already a disease that needs to be treated, depression. It is an important risk factor for the onset of dementia. So we need to be careful. We need to take care of our mental health as well to prevent the appearance of dementia and significant cognitive decline in the future. Okay, so depression is a risk factor to be considered. Another risk factor, which is also associated with a large number of chronic diseases, is physical inactivity. When a person is less physically active, the likelihood of developing dementia is higher than inactive people, healthy people, people who exercise regularly. So physical inactivity needs to be addressed. Another risk factor, which in itself is also a disease, diabetes. Diabetes, which is a disease in itself, is also a risk factor. So it needs to be managed, it needs to be controlled, the proper medication needs to be taken, and the necessary habits for diabetes control need to be adopted, because by controlling diabetes, you are helping to reduce the likelihood of developing dementia in the future. And finally, the last risk factor associated with the onset of dementia is limited social interaction, a low level of social engagement. So people who live very isolated lives, people who have little social contact with others, are more likely to develop dementia, to experience significant cognitive decline in the future, and that's why this needs to be addressed. And in addition to these 9, in the next video, we will talk about the 3 new ones included in this latest recommendation, these 3 new risk factors that have been linked to the onset of dementia. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you haven't yet. And stay tuned, because in our next video, we'll talk about the 3 new risk factors that are associated with the onset of dementia. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.